perfectly sane and reliable people have been involved in this flying saucer.
For whatever reason, the big science journals don't want to publish their findings.
Dr. Reed is a famous investigator of psychic phenomena, but disbelief of such a Jew might interfere with my investigation.
The term flying saucer has become a household
There's a
word.
multitude of theories and explanations for the mysterious lights and unexplained phenomenon witnessed by millions of people around the world every year.
Since 1948, one publication has continued to bring news about paranormal phenomena and unexplained events. That magazine is Fate. And in that tradition of providing true reports of the strange and unknown, this is Fate Radio. And now, coming to you live from WGOG Digital Broadcasting, your host of Fate Radio, Todd Bates.
And a good evening, one and all. Welcome. Fate Radio Live, letstalkradio.net, or fatemagradio.com. Wherever you are listening from, welcome to the program. We have got an amazing show for you this evening. First hour, we're going to be discussing alien implants, UFOs, and the repercussions of it with our guest, Terry Lovelace. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment. So what we do is we welcome you in chat, of course. You can enter chat either one of those websites, letstalkradio.net or fatemagradio.com. Either one of those will get you where you need to be. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. Post your questions in there. Megan will grab those for you this evening. Be sure to put those in all capital letters if you would. That way we can definitely tell them apart and process them faster for you. Now, without further ado, tonight's program is going to be an eye-opener for each and every one of you. We're going to be posting some photographs in chat that haven't been publicized just yet. You're going to be seeing those for the first time in our chat room, so definitely skedaddle in there. And our first guest this evening is none other than Terry Lovelace, a 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force. Now, he completed a bachelor's degree in psychology at Park University in 1979. He later earned a Juris Doctor at the University of Michigan Law School, TMC campus in Lansing, Michigan. He passed the Michigan bar exam on his first attempt. First attempt, folks. His legal career began in private practice, handling a variety of civilian litigation and criminal defense cases. He entered public service as an assistant attorney general and later as general counsel for LBJ Tropical Medical Center in U.S. territory of the American Samoa. Now, he retired in 2012 as an assistant attorney general for the state of Vermont. He continues to write and is a frequent speaker at UFO events and various podcasts. In 2018, his story was filmed for Strange Curiosity, a television documentary by Nine Diamond Production Company. Brad and Barry Clinch, executive producers. Welcome to Fate Radio, Terry. It is great to have you.
Thank you, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here.
Where to begin with you? It's such an amazing story that you have undergone. Amazing. Oh my goodness. You and I have talked in length about some of these things, and there's so much to discuss that we have actually already, we're in the process of booking Terry for a 2-hour special. That is how much we are going to be discussing with this. We may not be able to get all this in an hour, so we're going to rebook him here for a couple of months. You guys are going to have him on here again in June for a 2-hour special, so be prepared for that. But, Terry, the alien world, these abductions, implants, and things of that nature, they have been going and going and going for decades now. And you are definitely no stranger to any of these, but this happened several years ago. Your first encounters with these. Now, a lot of people, they have to be regressed or hypnotized to remember some of these events. And you remember some of these events pretty vividly as well. And this all started as a child. Do you care to tell us about that?
Sure. My first interaction with alien beings, I believe, was when I was about 8 years old, living in St. Louis, Missouri. And I would have these 4 little monkeys come into my room at night. I mean, it's a scary world when you're a kid, but these 4 2.5 foot tall monkeys, they all had yellow eyes. Mm-hmm. They wore white mask with this big grin. And they would come out of the shadows and kind of form a semicircle around my bed. The one closest to my head always stepped forward and looked at me and spoke, but his lips never moved. And he'd say, "Come on, Terry, come on with us. Let's go play." And he held out a paw, and then sometimes he held out a hand. And I would scream bloody murder. And, the hall light comes on. My dad comes running in. What's wrong? More monkeys? Yeah, Dad, sorry. But these things plagued me for, oh, God, almost a year. And they were just absolutely terrifying.
Oh, my goodness. And monkeys are creepy to begin with, let alone seeing them in that state. Oh, wow. We have so many things to get into. Questions already coming in here for you, Terry, but we're going to, put those on hold because what really happened in 1977, now you had this experience that just changed you and your best friend's life. Tell us what happened there, 1977. Take us back.
I did. It's an epic event in my life. It's an event that I rank up with the birth of my children. I mean, it's just epic. My friend and I decided we were going to take a camping trip, a 2-day camping trip, 2-night camping trip, in a place called Devil's Den in northwestern Arkansas. It's a state park. Mm-hmm. And my buddy, Toby, as I call him in the book, Tobias, came up with the idea kind of out of the blue. Neither one of us had ever been camping in our lives. We're both city kids. We planned this trip out and packed up. We drove down, and we wanted a real wilderness experience. We didn't want to stay in a campground. We thought, and I thought Toby made a good point. He says, you stay in a campground, you might as well sit in a parking lot in the middle of the forest. He says, let's go find the wilderness. So there was a nature preserve there that was off limits, chained off, and we drove my old Impala up to where it was chained, and Rod hopped out of the car. It was just, the chain was locked on itself, and he just lifted it up over the post and let it drop. We drove in, and it seemed like it seemed like Tobias knew right where to go. I mean, forks in the road, he'd say, "Yeah, let's take this route." Mm-hmm. And we went on a gentle incline, and we finally came to the crest of a hill. I called it a meadow. It was a plateau, a high spot, and it was just absolutely breathtaking. For purposes of photography, it was just the ideal location. And we set up camp there on the edge of the tree line with this big open meadow in front of us. The first thing we did was we hopped out of the car, and Tobias wanted to set up camp right away. And I'm like, no, man, I just drove, 6+ hours. I want to stretch my legs. So we grabbed a bottle of water and went for a hike. And it was odd. We came, I guess we walked probably about 5 miles. Maybe a little further as the crow flies, because it was a winding trail. Came to this nice limestone outcropping of rock with a nice canopy over the trees over the top of it. And the rock was cool and cool to the touch. It was just a pleasant place to sit down and rest. And we both sat down to rest, and the incredible thing is we both fell asleep. Now, I remember feeling drowsy, and I remember thinking, well, I should be tired from the drive, but there's a difference between tired and drowsy. And I felt definitely, I'd say almost sedated.
Okay.
And I fell asleep. And my next recollection was Toby kicking me, with expletives, "Get up, get up." And I opened my eyes, and my God, it was almost sundown.
Wow.
And we were terrified at the idea of spending the night in the middle of the forest. I mean, I'm sure we would have survived it, but, it sure would have been uncomfortable. And we raced our way back to camp, and set up everything, put up our tent. I gathered the firewood, started a fire, burned the hot dogs, got everything ready for the evening. And later on in the evening, we're tired. We're kicked back on these air mattresses around the campfire. And I know to Toby, I said, did you notice the tree frogs? They're gone. And he stops and listens, and he's like, oh, no, they'll be back. They'll be back. But, I mean, there wasn't a cricket. There wasn't anything.
Silence.
And that unnerved me. We sat there, and I noticed Toby turned his head to the left and was staring at something on the horizon. And he turned to me and said, hey, look at this. What are those? And on the horizon to our west was a triangular formation. It was 3 little stars. And they sat right on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just a little bit brighter than the rest of the stars in the sky. But they were an odd formation. My buddy was an amateur astronomer, and I remember he said, I don't know every, star configuration there is out there, but that looks odd to me. And we were discussing, could that be an aircraft? What is it? And while we're looking at it, it starts to rotate. And we're both like, whoa, look at this. And the thing turns like it's on an axis and does about a 180-degree turn, stops for a moment, and then starts a slow ascent into the air. And we were just mesmerized. And for a few minutes, when this thing first started to ascend high into the sky, I felt scared, frightened. And I remember saying to Toby, man, can this thing hurt us? And he says, oh, what's to hurt us? And then I felt a calm come over me, and I was absolutely, again, almost sedated.
Wow.
But mesmerized by these 3 stars. And we watched them as they rose, and Toby noted at first that the area inside the triangle was darker than the surrounding night sky. And as it passed over a star field, individual stars would blink out and then blink back on again as the thing passed. So we figured out pretty quick that this was one solid object we were seeing, not, 3 perfectly choreographed objects. And as it rose in the sky, the 3 dots, 3 light sources, grew brighter, and they expanded equidistant, and this triangle just grew and grew. And Ron said, Toby said, this thing's headed our way. This thing's going to be right over our head. And we weren't frightened by that. We thought it was, it's kind of neat. And before, I'd say, an hour is out, over the top of us is this huge triangle that ate up a third of the sky, that was jet black, with bright lights on all 3 points. And it was it was a billion stars out that night. And it had the appearance of, it was just like somebody cut a giant triangle out of this field of stars. And there was the black spot there. And I estimated it was 1,500 feet, maybe 2,000 feet above us. I mean, I had nothing to go on that, to base that on, but that's what I thought. As we're watching it, Toby grabs a flashlight and says, Toby was he was the impulsive one all the time. Picks up the flashlight and he says, let's see what happens. And he flashes the flashlight 3 times at this thing before I could grab it out of his hand, because I didn't think it was a good idea. As soon as he did that, from dead center of the triangle, there was a shaft of light about the diameter of a softball. And it was a visible stream of light. It was visible like a high searchlight would be through a foggy night, that kind of thing.
Right.
And sat dead center of our campfire. And we were both like, whoa, what is this? But again, no fear. And it stayed in the middle of the campfire for a couple minutes, and it blinked out. As soon as it blinked out, in its place came a laser about the diameter of a pencil, blue, violet color, very bright, and it would it would dart all over the campground. It would hit here and then click off, and then a millisecond later it would be somewhere else. So we never actually saw it move. We saw it dance, here and then there and then here. I know it hit my chest and my head. It hit Toby more than it hit me. But it was all over the campground. This lasted 5 or 6 minutes. And it was the oddest thing. I remember Toby said, well, show's over. And I said, yeah, man, I'm beat. And we went in the tent and went to bed. It's as insane as that sounds, that's exactly what we did. And I could best describe my emotions as apathy.
Okay.
It was a cool thing to see, but like Toby said, show's over. I was exhausted. It was probably around midnight. I went in the tent. And the last thing I remember not hearing the crickets or the tree frogs and thinking, yeah, Toby, you were wrong about that one. And then I heard him gently snoring, and then that was it. It was lights out. I was asleep. And I estimate it to be about 3 hours later, I woke up and there were these bright lights flashing through the tent. And they were very, very bright. Yellow, orange, and white. And flashing, dancing, but just all over the place. Toby's on his knees, and he's got the flap of the tent parted just a little bit, and he's looking out. And I'm groggy. I'm confused. I had trouble shaking off the sleep, if that makes sense.
Right, it does. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, park rangers? Could there be park rangers out there with flashlights? And then I heard this low droning bass sound similar to standing next to a locomotive or a big piece of machinery. It wasn't so much loud as it was you feel it in your chest. I noticed that, and I thought, maybe somebody's got a generator on the back of a truck or something. And I said, Toby, what's going on, man? He turned to me and put his finger across his lips and said, shh. And I noticed that when the light flashed, I got a glimpse of the side of his face, and I could see tears. I could see that he'd been crying.
Oh, wow.
And now that unnerved me a lot. I mean, Toby and I were first responders. We worked as a team. And we'd been through some dangerous situations. I knew that Toby had my back and vice versa. And I could not imagine what would move this man to tears. So I said, Toby, what is it? What's out there? And he didn't answer me. So I got on my knees, and as soon as I did, I felt like somebody had beat me. And every bone in my body ached. And my shoes that I left laced up, I left them on in purpose in case I needed to go outside in the nighttime. I'd have my boots on, and my boots were not laced up properly. And I thought that was odd. I got to my knees, and I went and kind of brushed Toby to the left and pulled the flap back and looked out the tent flap and saw this thing that we saw at the night had descended and was now about 30 feet over the floor of the meadow. And Todd, it was enormous. It ate up every square inch of that meadow.
Whoa.
And it was peculiar because Toby chose exactly the right place to park. it seemed like where they would have, where we wouldn't be in their way, if that makes sense.
It was like synchronicity. Everything happened for a reason. My goodness. Hold that thought one moment. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Terry about this experience and a few things the aliens may have left behind inside Terry. All of that's coming up. Join us in chat. Let'sTalkRadio.net. More Fate Radio on the way. Stay tuned.
Stations in the world. We're one of them. WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Let's talk. In 2012, Keith Linder, after successfully obtaining a management position at a prestige healthcare company, decides the time is right for him and his girlfriend to move in together. That's putting things lightly. Weird things begin to happen within days of moving into the modern suburban home. The horrors they witnessed and desperately tried to fight off would end up putting them at the odds with members of the paranormal community and themselves. This gripping story, told from the house occupant's point of view, not only lists tales, but also includes pictures, video reenactments, commentary, and audio of the events being reported. Author Keith Linder does not ask you to believe him. He only asks you to listen. The Bothell Hell House by Keith Linder, now available on Amazon. The book, The Bothell Hell House. The author, Keith Linder. Order yours today on Amazon. There are thousands of health and beauty products on the market these days, but how many can you say are truly natural? The name says it all, and Naturally by Darla is here to humbly serve, guide, and help to heal all individuals seeking a more natural way of living. NaturallyByDarla.com provides a wide variety of products and services like essential oils, soaps, balms and salves, powerful mists, and ancient healing techniques. Curious yet? We thought so, and invite you to visit our website, naturallybydarla.com, or call 847-334-1580. That's 847-334-1580. Naturallybydarla.com. Humbly serving for over 10 years. Naturally.
Your Monday nights just got better. Tune in to ParatalkRadio.com. We are your paranormal talk. On the air, on the web, and in the field. We have guests from all over the paranormal world. We discuss ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. Check us out on Facebook Live on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern at Facebook.com/ParatalkRadio. Remember, wherever there is darkness, there is always the light. ParatalkRadio.com.
While the other stations are run from high-rises in the city, we're programmed from a little bungalow on Windtree Drive. Let'sTalkRadio.net.
23 minutes past the hour. Fate Radio Live. Let'sTalkRadio.net. FateMagRadio.com. Either one of those locations. Get into chat right there. Logging through Facebook, Twitter right there. With your Twitter IDs, your Facebook IDs. You can register as a guest. Get into chat. We're going to be posting some photographs in there shortly. Of course, we're speaking with guest Terry Lovelace about his experience with an unearthly phenomenon. We were discussing their camping trip, the lapse in time, how they awoke in the middle of the woods, right there near sunset, and the emotions they're feeling or not feeling. There's no crickets, no tree frogs, meaning something may be in the area where they're at, observing them. And we're going to pick up right where we left off. And Terry, you were talking about pulling back the flap on the tent.
I did. Toby was fixated on something, and I wanted to see. And I got to my knees, and I kind of pushed him to the left and pulled the tent flap back. And what struck me was the size of this thing. It was, the way I describe it is, if you took a 5-story office building and levitated it about 30 feet off the ground, that's what it looked like. With on each of the 3 points, well, I can only see 2 points, obviously. There was a light panel that ran all the way from the top to the bottom, and it was a good 5 stories tall. And the light would travel up and down, and I remember thinking, when it's in the sky, I bet that gives the illusion of a star twinkling. I don't know why that crossed my mind, but it did. And I'm looking, and there are kids out there. And I'm looking, and I'm like, Toby, what are these kids doing out here in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night? And he looked at me, and he said, man, those ain't no little kids.
Oh, wow.
And then I knew. And then I had flashes of memory. I had these just terrifying scenes flash in my mind. And not on a linear, not as a story, but just as fragments and flashes of memories of events and things I saw. And we watched these little beings. They were in groups of 2s and 3s, and they would meander around, and there was a shaft of light coming down from the center of this thing. And again, it was that same intensity of like a search beam shining through fog. But this was much wider. This was like 30 feet in diameter. And it went from dead center of the ship down to the floor of the meadow. And it illuminated. We could see a circle, what looked like an ellipse on the meadow floor. And as these little guys walked into this light in pairs or 3s, they would just dissolve. And they were gone. And we watched them until the last one had gone. And the droning noise that was so powerful stopped. And it was dead silent. I mean, not a cricket, not anything at this point. And the lights in the corners that had been multicolored, oranges, yellows, greenises, all changed to white. And it began to, this 5-story light panel, it was like a light bulb was run up and down the side of the 5-story light panel. And we were too afraid to come out of the tent. We were too afraid to do anything but just sit there and watch it. After the last little guy got dissolved, the beam shut off, and the droning sound ended, and it lifted off like a hot air balloon would, very slow.
Okay.
And rotated a little bit, and then just kind of picked up speed and continued to go straight up. And we watched it, and at one point we had to flip over on our backs to look up to watch it go up in the sky. And it went higher and higher and got smaller and smaller. And we watched it till it just blinked out. And neither one of us said a word. I think we sat there for 30 minutes watching the hole in the sky where it disappeared. And finally Toby said, I think they're gone. Let's get out of here. The thought of leaving that tent terrified me. Mm-hmm. The thought of being out in the open was absolutely terrified me to death.
God, I can imagine.
And I said, Toby, we need a plan. And he said, okay, here's the plan. You got the keys. I got the flashlight. Let's make a run for the car. And you drive, I'll navigate. Now, when we drove into this place, I told Toby, I said, I don't want to get us lost. And he had there was a bank envelope in my glove box and a pencil. And he drew a little map as we went into the place. And if he hadn't done that, there's no way we would have been able to find our way back out of this place. But he had this marginally operative flashlight, and the car started right up, and we headed out. And it was a frightening drive. It was just darkness on all sides of us, and the terrain was rough, and sometimes the two headlight beams are up in the trees, and sometimes it's right in front of us. Sometimes Toby had to turn on the dome light to read his little map, and when he did, then I was blind. Eventually, we got back to that part of where the chain link, or pardon me, where the chain was across the road, and then I knew we were going to be okay. The overriding sensation, there were two overriding sensations. One, of course, was fear.
Right.
And the second was thirst.
Thirst.
Never in my life had I been so thirsty. It was incredible. And I asked Toby, I said, man, look around. See what's in this car. Find me something to drink. And he's like, yeah, me too. I said, find anything. Anything that's not poison, I'll drink it. And we had bought a 6-pack of beer, and there was a can of beer in the back seat of the car, warm, of course. And we split that. I'll tell you, I was so thirsty that I was very tempted to just drain the whole can. And I thought I could do that. And I thought, what am I thinking? You know, this is my friend. I shouldn't be thinking like this. It's wrong. So, but that was the thirst that we felt, and we got back to 2-lane blacktop and headed back for Whiteman Air Force Base. And I drove as fast as the car would go without trying to get us pulled over, and headed back to base. We made a stop. I had to stop and get gas. Well, the first thing we wanted to do was put some distance between us and that car.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the next thing was, Toby said, the next place you find, pull in. Let's get something to drink. There's nothing but farmland. It's all soybean fields and forests all around us. And we finally come to like a little gas and go place in the middle of nowhere and pulled in. And I remember I hopped out and I ran to the men's room and splashed some water in my face and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were almost swollen shut. The sunlight, I was photophobic. The light was just intense. And I had sunburn all over my body. And I raised up my T-shirt and I looked in the mirror and I had sunburn underneath my arms. Later, when I got to the hospital, I found out I had sunburn on the soles of my feet. Toby and I both were burned, but Toby got the worst of it. He was in worse shape than I was. I opened the door to the bathroom, and he was standing there leaning against the pole about ready to fall over.
My God.
Come on in, man. And I ran and paid for the gas and got a 6-pack of orange soda, and he bought a gallon jug of Grape-Aid. We hopped back in the car, and I drained those 6 cans in one after another. And Toby had been asleep, curled up in a fetal position, asleep until this point. He chugged the last bit of his gallon of Grape-Aid and curled up into a ball and was back asleep and snoring. And I was just bone tired on top of everything. I remember I was driving and I realized I was dreaming while I was driving, and I had to wake myself, and I had drifted over into the opposite lane of traffic, and thank God it was, the middle of nowhere and there was no traffic, and I was falling asleep. So I had to make every attempt to stay alert, stay awake, and drive, and that's what I did, and I got us back to base eventually. And the oddest thing happened, and that was that Toby and I, this is a guy that had been my best friend. We were friends socially as well. My wife and his wife were friends. They had 2 little kids that we welcomed like our kids, and suddenly I had a dislike for Toby. And that sounds odd, but, neither one of us spoke on the way back. I mean, we never said a word to each other. And I didn't want to see Toby. I didn't want to be around him. And I couldn't understand that emotion. I still don't. And I took him and I dropped him off at his house. Mm-hmm. We were NCOs in base housing. And I lived just a couple blocks away, and I drove over to my house and went in, and my wife was shocked to see me. And, what are you doing back so soon? Oh, my God, what happened to you? And she took my temperature. I had a temperature of almost 104. And I said, I got to have something to drink. She made some powdered lemonade, and I was just pounding that cup after cup. And she drew a bath for me of a tepid water on the cool side, and I laid in that for a good 45 minutes, and my fever came down to just below 102. And she said, come on, let's go to the hospital. And I didn't even protest. And it was kind of embarrassing because we worked at the hospital.
Right.
These were our friends. And everybody knew we were making this camping trip. And I was teased. I was known as the camp photographer. I was supposed to bring back Ansel Adam quality, prints of our trip. And I didn't have a single picture.
Oh, you're bringing back something from the trip, though. And we have a question from our one of our listeners, Wendy. She's stating here, so the journey severely dehydrated them. So you were completely dehydrated, right?
We were. That was the hospital admission diagnosis, was dehydration.
Okay. All right. And with that being said, there was something different inside you. And let's talk about what they may have left behind inside you here for a moment.
Yeah, I'd like to get to that. And when this event is all over, I had a couple of years of just absolutely horrific nightmares. And my wife had suggested that I journal them. And I did. And it was a good way to cope with the situation. And also, she found those notebooks, and it was invaluable putting this book together. But I became a runner. I got out of the military in 1979, late 79, and I started running. And I noticed that every time I ran, when I'd hit the 2-mile mark, I had a spot in my right leg, my lower leg on my lower thigh, but just above my knee on the lateral side to the right, it would go numb. And it was a numb spot. I called it my numb spot. It was about the size of a $50. And you could take a pen and poke it and delineate it. It had clearly defined edges. And I asked the other other runners I knew, and they're like, I never heard of such a thing. And I asked my physician, my family doctor, I get this spot here that goes numb. And he said, does it affect your running? Does it affect your life? I said, no, there's probably nothing to worry about. And I didn't worry about it. I didn't worry about it for 40 years. And in 2012, shortly after we retired and I moved to Dallas from Vermont, I had a fall down some stairs, actually up some stairs, and thought I might have broken my leg. And my wife took me to the VA hospital. I got all my medical care through the VA. And they x-rayed my leg. And the tech looked confused. And she took 2 shots of my leg, one straight on and one from the side. And she asked me, she said, Mr. Lovelace, did you suffer a shrapnel wound or anything of the sort? And I mean, no, I never left the States. She said, well, you've been in an automobile accident. Did you do something to account you have a piece of metal in your leg? And I told her, that's news to me. I never knew that. She ended up taking 8 shots, and she asked the radiologist to come down. And the radiologist came down and came over and popped a piece of film into the light box, walked over to me, took his finger and poked my right leg and said, it'll be right there. And I said, what? He said, your scar. You'll have a scar right there. I said, doctor, I don't have a scar. He says, you got to have a scar. This thing can't enter your leg without it breaching your skin. And even if it did so 60 years ago, there would still be a scar visible. So I took my pants back off, and he examined my leg for a good 10, 15 minutes. And he had his intern come down and bring a little handheld black light. And he said, this thing will fluoresce under a black light. And he killed the overheads and examined my knee with a black light and was just stumped. He says, I don't know. All I can think of is you were born with this thing in your knee. I said, Doctor, how often do you see a foreign object in the body without there be a corresponding scar?
Right.
And he said, never. I've been a radiologist for 23 years. I've never seen that happen. And that was it. So I went home, and I felt unsettled on the way home. My wife and I think we both knew, but we didn't discuss it. UFOs and what happened in 1977 was a taboo topic in our household.
Sure.
You know, we knew that every time we discussed it or talked about UFOs or the like, the nightmares would just roar back. And I think that was punishment. I think that was their way of controlling me so that I didn't speak out and didn't talk about this thing. But the discovery of this thing in my leg seemed to open up a door in my mind somewhere, and all of this, the emotion, the entire scene came back in vivid color, replayed in my mind, and it was horrific.
What happened when you began to speak out, when you began to go public with this? You held it silent for so long, so many years. What started to happen to you physically?
I started to lose weight. I had always, since I quit running in 2005, I put on some pounds. And 240 was my normal weight. I think I sent you a picture of my normal weight. And
yeah, I'm posting both of those in the chat room now. Those of you in chat, you'll see those here in just a moment. Those of you who are not in chat, join us at letstalkradio.net or fatemagradio.com. You'll see the before and after of what happened to Terry when he began to speak out about this. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. I had a slow weight loss, and I thought, well, this is great. You know, I love it. My appetite went away. I didn't have any appetite, which is very odd. Carbonated beverages, I couldn't drink. There were a lot of things that I used to like that I just had no taste for, and I continued to lose weight. And that started in 2014 when I started accumulating documents and pulling notes together to assemble this into a book. And my wife flew up to Michigan. We had a storage locker, and she was sure that we had those notebooks from 1979 through, and some from 1987. And sure enough, she found them, and my sketches and drawings were still there too. And that really ramped up the nightmares. And these were, I would wake up screaming. And I had to get up and turn every light on in the house. I kept a pistol by my bedside, had a high-power flashlight, and I would have to go from room to room, check everything out, check the doors. And of course, they were always locked. The alarm was always set. Nothing was out of place. But I could not go back to sleep until I'd got up and done this. It became like a ritual. Mm-hmm. Then I could go back and usually go back to sleep and be fine. The weight loss, I had what I believe was a visit from an alien. And this sounds far-fetched. I know, but This is what happened, and exactly the way it happened. I went to bed one evening. My wife and I had been out. We'd gone to a movie, saw something, not in the horror genre. Went to bed. I woke up. I woke up, and I was sitting in my living room chair, bolt upright, and sweating. And seated directly across from me is about a 4-foot-tall Asian woman. What I thought was an Asian woman, mm-hmm. Dressed in black shoes, nursing-style black shoes, black pants, black blouse, long sleeves, came all the way down. She had long arms. And a red scarf around her neck, because her neck was pencil thin. And she had on a wig, a black wig, out of style, kind of like my sisters wore in the 60s. And this wig was on her head, and it was kind of askew. And I thought, that looks ridiculous. She said, it's exactly the way it was last time I saw you.
And we're going to continue right there when we come back. The last time she saw him. The aftermath coming up here. More with guest Terry Lovelace. Fate Radio, letstalkradio.net, fatemag.com. Join us in chat. We'll be right back.
We interrupt our scheduled programming to bring you the following conspiracy theory. Humpty Dumpty was pushed. WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's talk.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has delivered a one-of-a-kind reading experience covering everything from psychics, UFOs, paranormal investigations, and more. To subscribe, visit fatemag.com or call 828-702-3032. That's 828-702-3032. Subscribe and find your true reports of the strange and unknown at fatemag.com.
Haunted, a psychic story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, a psychic story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, a Psychic Story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, a Psychic Story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, a Psychic Story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today. In 2012, Keith Linder, after successfully obtaining a management position at a prestige healthcare company, decides the time is right for him and his girlfriend to move in together. That's putting things lightly. Weird things begin to happen within days of moving into the modern suburban home. The horrors they witnessed and desperately tried to fight off would end up putting them at the odds with members of the paranormal community and themselves. This gripping story, told from the house occupant's point of view, not only lists tales, but also includes pictures, video reenactments, commentary, and audio of the events being reported. Author Keith Linder does not ask you to believe him. He only asks you to listen. The Bothell Hell House by Keith Linder, now available on Amazon. The book, The Bothell Hell House. The author, Keith Linder. Order yours today on Amazon. Others say it. We prove it. WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Let's talk.
.48 minutes past the hour. Fate Radio Live, letstalkradio.net, fatemagradio.com. And, of course, we're speaking with Terry Lovelace. And if you have any questions, the time to post them into chat is now. We're going to try and get to those. This is a very compelling story. And we're trying to get the story out, but don't worry. We're going to have Terry back for a 2-hour special here in the next couple of months. We're going to be getting him booked. He's going to come back for a 2-hour special. We can get into this in more detail. A lot going on. And Terry, you were talking about seeing the Asian woman. Go ahead and continue.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes. Just briefly, I wanted to add that there were a couple of things after the 1977 event, as I felt uncomfortable. Actually, no, that went back to childhood. I felt uncomfortable around Asian women, especially elderly Asian women. But the woman seated across from me was familiar to me. And I thought, my God, that wig looks ridiculous. And she said, and her lips never moved, but I heard her clear as a bell. It's the same as last time we met. And I remembered for some reason. I remembered we communicate telepathically. That's how they do it. And I thought, I'm not used to people being able to hear my thoughts. I want to keep some things private. And she said, you can, just try. And I don't know if that was just to placate me or what. And I thought, well, why are you here? I didn't have any fear. But I was curious, why are you here? I thought to scream for my wife, but I knew, they took care of that. She's not gonna wake up. And she said, when I'm going to use the word talk like a dialogue, but it was all mental. She said, I'm here to tell you that you should not publish your book and you should not talk in public. You should not speak in public. And my response was, why not? Lots of people write books. Why is mine so different? And she said, because you have devices in you. And I said, you could use that in the plural sense, devices? She says, yes, you have one device in each leg. And she said, my hosts will not allow that to be removed and examined by terrestrial doctors. They will come and remove that from you if you continue in this vein. And I said, what do you mean they're going to come and remove it? She said, they'll come in the middle of the night and they'll take it out of your body. Now, there's a whole lot more, but suffice to say, there's a flash, and she's gone. And I went and grabbed a pen and paper, as is my habit, and a gun, and I wrote down as much as I could recall. I went to bed and slept like a baby, slept till noon. Got up the next day. 2 weeks later, I wake up and I got terrible pain in my upper thigh, both legs. And I sent you some photographs. There's a flower petal-like bruising pattern at the top of both of my legs.
Mm-hmm. Those are bruises.
Yeah, they came out about 48 hours after the event. And my wife said, Betty was right. They came back and they claimed their property. So I had to go, I got to find out. So I went out, and it's hard to find an x-ray. I mean, you can't just walk in and ask for an x-ray.
Right.
I found a kind chiropractor who wrote me a script to get my leg x-rayed. And they did an x-ray. First thing I did was hold it up to the light, and it was gone. The metal object was gone. And I said, they did. I dropped the x-ray off at the chiropractor's office because he wanted to review it, and he was busy. So later that evening, he calls me and he says, I got your x-ray. Did you see it? And I said, did I see what? He says, they didn't get it all. I said, what? And he told me where to look, and there are 2 tiny filaments of wire left in my leg, deep down next to the bone. I think this is deep because I've lost so much weight; it's shifted.
Right.
But when there were 2 wires visible. If you look at the original X-ray of the thing, well, those 2 little wires were left inside of me, and they're still there now. That's where we stand today.
So they're still there. They may, possibly they could reconnect the device. You have no idea. Maybe that's in there for a specific reason. Like I said, they may want to reconnect it later or keep tabs on you. Perhaps it's some kind of homing beacon for you, some kind of locating device. Just amazing story. It
has some really odd qualities to it, and that is that when I was taping this thing for Strange Curiosity,
mm-hmm.
My microphone fell off my lapel, landed in my lap, and their sound technician kind of pressed his headphones against his ears and said, shh, quiet. And he says, I'm hearing voices. And I picked up the microphone, the little microphone, and I moved it right over where the thing used to be in my leg. And it's now I hear music. And it was mariachi music.
Oh, my.
And he hit, my leg was broadcasting a radio station from Mexico. And they had that on film. They had that on video. And the sound tech there swore up and down, there's absolutely no way unless your knee was broadcasting.
Goodness. There's
no way. So, and the weight loss. I just want to mention that I'm down to, I think I sent you a picture. I'm down to 150 pounds. Actually, I got down to 147.
And you were at 240, correct?
Yeah, 240 is what I normally weighed, and I am. I'm fighting. To keep my weight on. I've been examined and for everything you could think of, and my doctors. I'm perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with me, except that I'm having trouble keeping weight on, and what the doctor refers to as a wasting of my muscles. I'm losing muscle mass too, and that's concerning. So it's been about a 90-pound total weight loss.
My goodness. My 90 pounds. Oh, so much more to discuss with this. I mean, we run out of time. That the hour has flown by here. And like I said before, we are definitely going to get you rebooked for a 2-hour special. That is going to be coming up. We're going to get into this more in detail. And I do apologize about the questions. There were some. If we do, let's see, we can take a few minutes here to get some of these out. Kat was asking, from chat, were there any witnesses to the surgery to remove the implant?
No, the implant was removed in the middle of the night in my bedroom by the aliens. By what? The little lady that came to see me, she referred to the aliens as her hosts. H-O-S-T-S.
Hosts.
Now, the word host, has a lot of meanings. It can mean like a symbiotic relationship, a parasitic relationship. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, you called them alien. I called them hosts. And I said, why do you call them your hosts? She says, because they're not alien to me.
Wow.
And I thought that was a very eloquent way of saying.
Very eloquent. Goodness. And Brenda has a question here quickly. There's a lot of military air traffic flying over my house here in this part of North Georgia. Could they keep the little guys from visiting here?
I don't know. I don't know if they protect me or if they work in concert with them. And in my book, I explain, I think there are a couple of possibilities. I think that our military could be working shoulder to shoulder with them, mm-hmm. or it could be a quid pro quo, where they give us technology and, the exchange may not be to our liking, but it may be just a trade. Technology for free license to abduct people. Or the third scenario, it's got to be one of the three, I think, is that our military can do nothing and do nothing to stop this. And all that they can do is try to mitigate fear and perpetuate the myth and try to discredit anybody that steps forward and make it a joke. Make implants and alien abduction the stuff of comedians. And I think we're programmed in some way.
I would agree because this is just too. This is too convincing. This is too real. This is something people you need to understand and open up. We are definitely not alone. And Terry has braved his way through this to come forth with his information, with his experience, with all of this. And there's so much more to go. And of course, we're going to have him on for another program. But real quickly here, you've got a few minutes before we have to get our next guest on. We're going to be speaking with Rebecca Smuk next hour. We're going to be discussing some things with her as well. But tell us about your book, Incident at Devil's Den.
Oh, thanks, Todd. Yeah, in 2012, late 2012, when I had the X-ray and the nightmares came roaring back, I picked up where my wife had told me to do back in 1978, 79. I started journaling these things again, and sure enough, they told a story. Each dream would end where the next one would begin, and they dovetailed together nicely. Because you're waking up screaming nightmare nicely, and it was the horrific scenes of these big, giant bug-like things manipulating my body, manipulating my lower spine, doing terrible things to me. And I'm sorry, Todd, I lost my train of thought.
You're okay. No, this is fine. This is something that it does. It exhausts you talking about it, and I completely understand.
I'm back on track. I assembled these notebooks and I compiled them together chronologically to explain my story from when I had the experiences at age 8 and then again at age 11. And then the incident in 1977, and then another incident in 1987 of missing time. But fortunately, I had all of this documented, and it made it very easy to sit down and write the book. And I think it's a good book. It's been well received. It's called Incident at Devil's Den, and it is up on Amazon, both on Kindle and a paperback copy. It's a good book, and I try to be as candid as I can, and I don't hold anything back, and I speak openly and honestly about some things that are kind of controversial and things I don't think our government would like me to say, but I think need to be said. So if you get a chance, please, it's Incident at Devil's Den on Amazon. If you read it, I hope you enjoy it.
Terry, thank you so much for sharing this experience. We're definitely going to have you back here again real soon. Did a phenomenal job. Get some rest, my friend. Get some rest. You've done well.
Thank you, Todd. I will. I appreciate you.
You bet, Terry. Have a great night. Terry Lovelace, everyone. More Fate Radio. When we come back, we're going to be talking the psychic world and Ouijas with Rebecca Smuk. Coming up here next. Stay tuned for here's the latest news. Fate Radio Live. Let's talk radio.net. We'll be right back.
It wasn't on purpose. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The company accused of scraping up Facebook users' personal info for political purposes says it wasn't intentional. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal has more live.
Lisa, Cambridge Analytica's acting CEO says they did not use the Facebook data they got in the 2016 presidential election. Alexander Taylor said when they got the data back in 2014, they did it within Facebook's terms of service, but deleted it in 2015 after Facebook asked them to do so, and certified it with an internal audit as well. Now they're undertaking yet another audit, and they say they're cooperating with British authorities. Now, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the way they granted app makers access has not been allowed since a policy change nearly 4 years ago. A House and Senate committee have sent a letter to Zuckerberg requesting that he testify, and earlier this week, Zuckerberg had said he would be willing to, Lisa.
Jessica, another day of jitters on Wall Street as investors continue to be fearful over a trade war with China.
Today, the Dow finished down 424 points at 23,533. That was a loss of 1.77%. The Nasdaq down 174 points at 69.92. The S&P 500 down 55 points at 25.88. For the week, the Dow and the S&P 500 down more than 5.5% each. The Nasdaq down more than 6.5%.
Nicole Pedalini's with the Fox Business Network. Students who work on the newspaper at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, took part in a forum today in Washington ahead of tomorrow's March for Our Lives to discuss gun violence.
The reality is that most of the 17 people were under the age of 18. So if those kids are old enough to be in the line of fire, then we're old enough to speak out about it.
Mostly students were killed at the school when police say Nicholas Cruz opened fire on Valentine's Day. Fox News, fair and balanced. Murder and attempted murder charges filed in Dallas against an elder care worker who police say also stole from people he was supposed to be helping. Fox's Joy Piazza has this live.
Police all over the Dallas metro area are investigating Billy Chmurmer, who they believe's been attacking the elderly, and the victims could be in the hundreds.
Suspect Chmurmer has worked as a healthcare worker and has a history of impersonating maintenance personnel at a retirement community in Dallas. We also have reports of the suspect posing as a maintenance worker in cases we are investigating as well.
Plano Police Chief Gregory Russian. Authorities say Chmurmer would try to suffocate his victims with a pillow. He's been charged in the death of an 81-year-old in North Dallas. Police are asking the public to call them if they know of any other suspicious deaths. Lisa?
Joy, the number of foreign children adopted by U.S. parents dropped by more than 12% last year, according to the State Department. The decline has now continued for 13 years. 3 people are dead after what authorities are calling a terror attack at a market in southern France. French Interior Minister Gérard Collomb says the suspect, a Moroccan-born man, is also dead.
Gendarmes intervened very quickly. They made sure that there was no massacre.
There are reports the man demanded the release of the only survivor of the 2015 terror attacks in Paris. Chicago's Transportation Department estimates the cost to taxpayers for widening streets and other infrastructure for the Obama Presidential Library could total $175 million. Former Melrose Place actress Amy Locane must return to court for resentencing for a fatal 2010 auto crash. A New Jersey appeals court ordered the new sentencing today, writing that the trial judge's reimposing of the same sentence last year didn't adhere to an earlier appellate court ruling and didn't take into account the severity of the crime. Lisa Lacera, Fox News Radio.
Top of the hour, Fate Radio Live. Todd Bates here. Those of you just joining us from your amazing Friday night out, welcome to the second hour. And, of course, we want to thank once again our first hour guest, Terry Lovelace. Be sure to check out his book. You can find the information right there in chat where you need to be right now. letstalkradio.net or fatemagradio.com. Either one of those locations, get into that chat. Amazing things going to be coming up here. We're going to be talking with Rebecca Smuk about Ouijas, lost objects, house clearings, hauntings, all of the above. And she's got something special in line for you that we're going to give away here in the second segment. So stay tuned for details on that. Now, without further waiting, Rebecca Smuk, the Motor City Medium. I love that. The Motor City Medium. That's got an awesome touch to it. Is an internationally renowned and respected spiritual empathic medium. She does readings to help those that need healing, insight, and closure by connecting with loved ones on the other side. She also specializes in violent or highly volatile hauntings and helps others cleanse their homes. Now, Rebecca is one of the very few mediums to use the Ouija board as a conduit during one of the readings with her clients or group seances. Now, she is also a member of GLAS Paranormal, which is a Detroit-based team. In addition to being a paranormal investigator and empathic medium, Rebecca also has been a guest on numerous radio programs and has a full schedule presenting at various paranormal conventions across the country. Welcome to Fate Radio, Rebecca. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wow. All of this that you do, all of the above. So many, I mean, some of these are eerie. Some of these are going to be scary to talk about. Some people may understand this. Some may not. So that's why we're here, is to get all this out, get the truth out there. But everybody has a story and what got them started in this field and developed. When did you develop your skills? Was this something as a child growing up or recently?
Well, actually, it started about age 3.
Wow.
I started seeing spirits at age 3. What escalated it is I actually drowned when I was age 4 and was pronounced legally dead for 2 minutes, came back. And after that, things escalated even more. I had another near-death experience when I was 19, when I was in a motorcycle accident, which increase my abilities. So, yes, since I was a small child, I have been seeing apparitions, trying to explain this to the people around me, telling my mom, there's people walking in our house. And she goes, "Oh, you're dreaming. Go back to sleep." I'm like, "I'm obviously awake. I'm standing here." But, I went through that, and my mother telling me as I was little, "Don't tell anybody, they'll put you in a cuckoo house." So, I grew up, keeping all this to myself until I, got older. And then I finally said, this is who I am and a part of who I am, and I'm just not going to hide it anymore. And that's how I got started in the paranormal.
So did you always know you had the ability? I mean, is this something you kind of carried along, or you just had to polish it growing up, or?
Yeah, as I grew up, like I said, when I was probably 3 or 4, I never got any sleep because I had dead people locked alongside my door. I would have this white apparition that I saw quite often. It was solid white, kind of almost glowing, and it would walk from outside the house, through my bedroom, down the hallway, and out the other side of the house. And I saw it quite often, and I would get up and follow it. I go tell my mom, the white man is back, and she says, again, she'd say, "You're sleeping, go back to bed." So, and I had these sorts of, incidences my entire life. Some of them are pretty scary. I spent a year and a half living in a house that was haunted. And because of too much sizing us, so we had to move out of there. And that's, when I was in my 30s, so early 30s. So it's been, pretty much since I'm old, since I've been old enough to remember that I've been experiencing these things.
Okay, let's get into something different here. You use a Ouija with your readings, and now that you have developed these abilities, for those listening that maybe don't know what a Ouija board is, could you describe one of those real quick and how you use those in your readings?
Sure. What a Ouija board is it's a board that was created. They date back as early as the 1700s, at which point they were called witch boards. Basically, it's a piece of wood, piece of metal, piece of plastic that has letters of the alphabet on it, numbers, a moon, a sun, goodbye at the bottom, and then called a planchet, which is what you place your fingers on. It can be one or more people, and what you do is you place your fingers on this planchet, and you use it as a way to communicate with the dead. This was one of the earliest ways of communicating with the spirit world before they had EVP recorders, before they had all the fancy equipment. This was one of the early ways that they used to communicate.
Now, with that, using the Ouija, do you find it that they just come through easier? Are they more accurate that way? Or is that just how you see them?
Well, I have to stress that using a Ouija board needs to be done, usually with somebody. The first couple times you do it with someone that knows exactly what they're doing, because, like any paranormal equipment, there's risks involved. So you got to make sure you know what you're doing. This is the best way that they come through for me. And when I connect with a client, it's the best way for me to get information. Sometimes it'll be as simple as us both placing our fingers on the Ouija board, and then they will just start talking to me, whoever the person they're trying to contact is. Sometimes the planchet doesn't even move. Other times it goes crazy all over the board. It depends on the person that they're trying to reach out to, if they're going to use the planchet or just, use the board as a conduit to connect me and the other person that I'm doing the reading for.
Okay. And it was breaking up a little bit there, but did you say that when you're using the Ouija with these readings, are you using it with someone else, or is it just you touching the planchette?
No, the other person touches it as well, and that creates a connection between myself, the client, the board, and the spirits that they're trying to contact.
So what is the big misconception here? Now, the Ouija has been around for forever. since I could remember. The misconceptions behind it, attracting lower end media or spirits and things, and lower end entities, demons. Is this true, Rebecca? Is this really true? Or is it just a bunch of crap?
Well, the Ouija board was picked up by Hasbro in the early 1970s. It was created as a game. Now, keep in mind, the concept of the Ouija board was created back in the 1700s and patented, but Hasbro bought that patent in the late 60s, started producing it in the early 70s as a game for children. If you remember, there was, every teenage girl sleepover had Ouija boards. They were fun. They were considered a game. And, as Hollywood started to find out about the Ouija boards, they made them more and more menacing. They started making movies about demons coming through, and there's a demon called Zuzu, which people swear that is a demon that they can contact through the Ouija board that's specific to the Ouija board. The movie The Exorcist was Linda Blair. In the original story, the young man, because actually it was a boy this happened to, used a Ouija board to try to contact his aunt that had passed, and that's how he contacted supposedly the demon that possessed him. There's probably 30, 40 movies about the Ouija board, and none of them are a good experience. They're all about, possession or bringing something into your life that's bad. I think there was even a Ouija board in Paranormal Activity. I think there was a board in that one.
Right.
So, every movie that a board is connected to leaves people, with a feeling of fear. So automatically they're going to be afraid of these things. I get probably at least 2 or 3 calls a week about people that have a Ouija board that they, were playing with, and they're telling me, they've got activity in their house now, things are flying around, seeing, and, I try to explain to people, if you're going to use a Ouija board, make sure that you follow the rules. That's, there are rules for using it. There's ways to open a portal, because basically when you use a Ouija board, you are opening a portal to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't close it properly and you leave it open, you can open yourself up, supposedly to something that you don't really want around. That's the theory. I have never, in all my years of using Ouija board, had anything bad come through.
Good. That's definitely nice to know. We've got a question here from chat. Wendy's asking, is there a difference between a Ouija board and a talking board?
Nope. They're exactly the same thing. It's just another name for it.
Okay.
They work the exact same way. Technically, you could make a Ouija board out of anything. I mean, if you wanted to just sit down at your dining room table with a piece of chalk and draw the pattern on your table and then use a glass upside down, that could be a Ouija board or a talking board.
Wow.
I don't recommend that, by the way, but you could technically do that.
Because it's safer to have all the symbols and things on there, correct? Have it designed the way it's designed.
Yeah.
Is that the way it properly opens and closes?
Right. Every symbol on there has a meaning and is a way for them to communicate. But you could technically copy it onto anything and use it that way, but I don't suggest that. But it's possible to do that.
Please don't get your shot glass and empty Jack Daniels bottle, folks, and put that in the center of the table and write the alphabet. That's not what she's saying. Okay.
No. I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that I have had people do that, and then actually it's like a giant Ouija board they created on their dining room table. I don't recommend that, but I'm just saying that there's many different ways to create a Ouija board. The best way to do it is to buy one that's made professionally. But you could technically do that, but don't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's just the patterns. It's the lettering. It's the symbols on there. All of these things help open and close the portals, right? Yeah, of course, we're going to get more detail with that.
Exactly. And it's also the intent.
The intent. So you have
the intent when you use it.
So you have the two people connected. They're touching the planchette, and that just they use you as a conduit or a host, so to speak, a channel.
Well, basically, basically it creates. Okay, when you're touching the planchette with another person, you're creating like a circle of energy around the two of you. Between you, the board, the other person, you and the board, and it kind of circles. So you're creating this energy, like pathway around the two of you that links you to the board, that opens the portal, so you can use that to contact the dead.
Wow. And more of that when we come back. If you guys have any questions about the boards or any personal experiences you'd like to share, we want to hear about them. Post them in the chat room at letstalkradio.net or fatemagradio.com, either one of those locations. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. More with Rebecca Smuk when we come back. We're going to be talking more Ouija. We've got some lost items we're going to be discussing, some hauntings, all kinds of amazing things coming up here. It's the long segment, one of my favorites here. Fate Radio, stay tuned.
For station identification. It's the little cinder block building on the north side of town with the towel behind it. WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's talk. Shopping, dining, beautiful lakes and rivers, and a monster? Welcome to Braxton County, West Virginia. Centrally located, Braxton County, West Virginia is the ideal place to visit. Natural beauty and recreation abound with 2 beautiful lakes for easy kayaking and canoeing, and many hiking trails. Did we mention the Flatwoods monster? That's right. Visit Braxton County, West Virginia's Flatwoods Monster Museum and not only learn about the Flatwoods Monster, but walk in the same footsteps as the people who witnessed it. Nearly all of our attractions can be found within a few miles of Interstate 79. Visit us online at braxtonwv.org. That's braxtonwv.org. Braxton County, West Virginia. Center yourself here. In 2012, Keith Linder, after successfully obtaining a management position at a prestige healthcare company, decides the time is right for him and his girlfriend to move in together. That's putting things lightly. Weird things begin to happen within days of moving into the modern suburban home. The horrors they witnessed and desperately tried to fight off would end up putting them at the odds with members of the paranormal community and themselves. This gripping story, told from the house occupant's point of view, not only lists tales, but also includes pictures, video reenactments, commentary, and audio of the events being reported. Author Keith Linder does not ask you to believe him. He only asks you to listen. The Bothell Hell House by Keith Linder, now available on Amazon. The book, The Bothell Hell House. The author, Keith Linder. Order yours today on Amazon. Nothing feels better than a good cleanse to wash away the day. If you think that refreshes you, then experience the ultimate cleanse with Soaps by Susan. Cleansing Spiritually LLC uses only pharmaceutical-grade essential oils, all-natural shea butter, coconut oils, and vitamin E, and tailored toward the ultimate cleanse. Susan uses a skin-safe fragrance with an aroma that brings a smile to your face and takes you to that happy place within. Each bar is handcrafted and custom to order, so it not only cleanses the soul, but also matches your room's decor. Cleansing Spiritually soap makes great gifts, or you can just indulge yourself for a spiritual cleansing you'll never forget. You want some now, don't you? We thought so. Contact Susan Todd to place your custom order at facebook.com/spiritually. Don't settle for clean. Get spiritually clean at facebook.com/spiritually. Haunted, A Psychic Story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, A Psychic Story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, A Psychic Story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, A Psychic Story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, A Psychic Story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today. The weather outside is cold, but we're smoking hot.
Hot damn.
WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's talk.
"24 minutes past the hour, Fate Radio Live. I'm your host, Todd Bates. Those of you just joining us, missed the first parts of the show, don't worry, we've got you covered. Everything's being archived. You can hear that later on at letstalkradio.net, or subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Play Music, or iHeartRadio. Either one of those outlets will get you right where you need to be. Just search Fate Radio. It's that simple. And we'll have the archive up about 30 minutes after the live broadcast. We get that up pretty quick for you. Just remember, it is an archive. We do not podcast. We are old school here at Let's Talk Radio. That is an archive. The show is intact. It has your commercials, your news. Everything is in there. So it's just like you're hearing it live for the first time. And we're speaking with Rebecca Smuk tonight. My goodness. Ouija boards. You guys are chattering about those in chat. And that's where you need to join the conversation, because these have been demonized by Hollywood, as people are commenting in chat as well. And that's true. They have been, Rebecca. It seems to be they're misled. And you use these for your readings, so they're obviously used for good instead of evil here. So that's one thing I wanted to clear up with the Ouija. And a question that I had for you about the Ouija board, is it similar to the angel board, or are those two different as well?
To a what? I'm sorry.
Angel board?
An angel board. I have angel boards. The only difference is that they used to connect with more positive things.
Okay.
They're a little bit safer. But I do have quite a few of those. I have 30 Ouija boards, I think, now in total.
Wow.
In my house. So, yeah. And I'm perfectly safe. I have never been possessed, or, nothing bad has ever happened to me. So I feel pretty confident that they're safe. They're beautiful. Some of them have beautiful artwork on them. Some of them are, as old as the 1700s, one of them that I have. Mm-hmm. And the artwork on some of them is really gorgeous. I mean, if you want to bring one into your home and you don't want to use it, frame it. Use it for the artwork. Some of them are really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the old ones, I mean, the genuine wood they're made from, they're breathtaking. They put a lot of work into them. But if you could explain to everyone, what are some proper ways to use the Ouija? For those that want to run out there to your local Toys R Us and grab the Parker Brothers version, the little cardboard box there, what are some proper ways to use it, Rebecca?
Well, they actually have one out right now that's pink, if you want to go pink. There's one in Toys R Us that's pink in color.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and it's really pretty, and I think it has, Barbie symbols on it. But, I mean, if you're into that sort of thing. What I suggest to everybody, and when I do my lectures, I offer the same advice. When you first get the board, it's always good to say a prayer over the board. When you first purchase the board, say a prayer, whatever religion, whatever belief system you have, use that to, fortify yourself. Make sure you're in a very good state of mind. Don't use a Ouija board if you're depressed, if you're sad, if you're, not feeling well, like if you have a cold or the flu, it's not a good idea, because you're making yourself vulnerable that way. What you want to do is when you start is at least you and one other person. I don't recommend somebody that's using a board for the first time to do it by themselves. You should have somebody with you that makes you, less vulnerable. Mm-hmm. When you start the board, you and the other person put your fingers on the planchette. You thank the spirit world for coming into contact with you, and you make sure you have a certain goal in mind, a certain person you want to contact. Because the thing is, when you contact the other side, especially through a Ouija board, everything can hear you. Not just your Grandma Jane, everything. Everything that's over there hears what you're asking. So make sure that you're limiting that down to exactly who you want to talk to or an exact question that you want answered. Once you're using the Ouija board, make sure, again, that you're saying, using very specific questions, that you're not asking for is anything bad in my house. Don't invite that into your own life. Trust me. Make sure that you're, again, positive. Only the people that your past loved ones, if you're not sure what you're doing, or if you haven't used a Ouija board before, don't invite trouble into your house. Once you're done with the board, you have to make sure that you close the portal, because it'll stay open if you don't. And then, it's like opening your door, the front door of your house, and unlocking it and telling anybody in the street, come on in. You're welcome. I'm not locking you out. So what you do is you thank, again, the spirits for communicating with you. You take the planchette without removing your fingers until you get to the word goodbye. Again, if you remove your fingers before you close the portal, there's a possibility it will stay open. So never take your fingers off. At least one person has to leave their fingers on until the board is closed.
Okay. And these, let's say someone's using them for the first time and these rules were disregarded and all hell broke loose in their home. You also cleanse homes. How does this now? This is something. Yes. This isn't something where you go in there with your cleaning supplies and things of that nature. You don't scrub it to death. This is something that has a lot more detail involved with it. What's this about clearing homes and cleansing them, and how do you do this, Rebecca?
Well, I have done this countless times. I get contacted that someone's having activity in their home. I do consultations with other paranormal teams, other mediums that, they get a case that they just can't handle because, things are too intense or too volatile or the people are too afraid. So they contact me. And what I do is I can either go to the home directly or I do what's called a remote cleansing, where, I go into state of meditation. I actually can visually see inside of the person's house without ever being there. I've done it. I've described, items in their house, and they're like, yep, we have that. Yep, that's where that staircase is. And I go in and I basically cleanse the house by chasing everything out that doesn't belong there. And, and if necessary, I will go to the house in person and do the same thing. I do use some tools such as white sage, which anybody can purchase online. To do their own house cleansing, you basically light the sage, make sure you're getting it in every corner, every nook and cranny of your house. And as you go through, you just say, this house, I'm clearing this house, I'm filling this house with love and light. Nothing negative can remain. Anybody can do that. But I'll go in and do that. I use different types of natural enhancements such as sea salt or frankincense and holy water in some cases I've used. I go through the house. I place, if they're having demonic activity, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. Usually it's not demonic. It's a spirit that's just not very nice. But I have used holy water in those instances where I could cross over every window and every door in the house and work my way from the back to the front. Make sure that they have a door or a window open so the spirits have, a way to get out, at least a symbolic way to get out. I have helped families that have small children that, are being just tormented, terribly because either they're gifted or, something's gotten in their house. And I do mentor children with gifts and teach them how to grow up in a much different way than I did. I teach them how to empower themselves, tools they can use, how to shut it off if they want to. until they get older. So that's another part of the services that I do is I mentor, young mediums and teach them how to handle being what they are.
Way to go. Good for you. Good for you. And thank you, for giving that tip as well about opening windows. I tried to sage and smudge my own home once and didn't open the windows, folks, and it was like a ping pong ball bouncing around. I don't recommend that. That wasn't fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got it. That's exactly what will happen.
Yeah, hence the reason I call people like Rebecca. When you're not in your domain, just stay out of it. Now, there's a lot of these hauntings that you've dealt with. Being the Motor City medium, you've been all over, and some of these hauntings are absolutely wicked. Tell us about some of your worst cases, if you would.
Sure. Oh, God, there's many. One of the ones I think was the worst is I had a young woman. She was probably in her mid-20s, and she got a hold of me and said, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, going into my bathroom, filling my bathtub up with water, and submerging my own head. She said, but I can feel somebody pushing my head down. And,
my God.
That was, terrifying to me because, she came close to almost drowning a couple times. Now, of course, I suggested to her, as I do with all my clients, you should go in and have a mental evaluation just to make sure you're okay. Mm-hmm. It's not that I think you're crazy, but let's make sure that you're mentally okay, because I don't want to make someone's mental problem worse by suggesting that something paranormal is happening to them. So, I check to make sure they're on any medications, they're not being treated by a psychiatrist. And once all that's cleared and I understand that they're, just really having paranormal activity, then I continue with the case. But this young woman, she had decided that she was going to be a witch.
Oh, boy.
And she'd gone to the library, and picked up a couple books on witchcraft and started doing incantations in her home, set up the circle, the candles, the whole nine. Probably a week later, she said she started dreaming about this woman. She said she was, this horrible looking woman, scraggly black hair, torn up clothes. And she started, she said she's whispering in my ear in my sleep. And she keeps telling me that I need to die and that I need to go into my bathroom and drown myself. She goes, I've tried to do this 3 times. So I over the phone, because she was, I think, in Washington State. Mm-hmm. I talked her through this. I told her what she needed to do. I cleansed the house. I said, give it 2 days and let me know if everything, is calmed down. And she called me 2 days later and said, the house is beautiful. The sun's coming in. There's no more bad feelings. I don't have these urges anymore. She said, you saved me from myself. And I recommended that she get rid of all the books and, just get rid of everything and not mess with that again. There was another case I had. I got called in on it was a paranormal team, and they didn't believe in mediums. They didn't think it was such a thing, and they wanted to test me.
Oh, boy. Oh, no.
So they took me to a parking lot in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know where I was going, what house I was going to. And as I'm talking to them, I said, there's 2 separate houses. And they're just like, we can't tell you anything. So they drive me to the house. I have no idea what's going on. They're like, tell us what you're getting. And I walk into the house and I said, there's a child in this house that's being tormented. And they're still not saying anything. And I walk into the bedroom of what is obviously a little girl's room. And I said, this is it. This is her. And they're, filming all of this, and they're like, yeah, you got it so far. And I went downstairs and I said, someone's in the house is suicidal and she needs help. And they did have a teenage girl suffering with some problems. And this was just all, validation. I said, there's an entity that's going between one house and the other, these 2 houses. I said, I keep seeing it going between 2 houses. And they said, yes, we're going to another location. So we went to the second house, I was standing outside and I said, it travels through the woods. It's up in the trees. And again, they're like, yeah, that's right. And I said, this little girl, I said, it's after her. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. That's the problem. She was 4 years old. Just all sorts of things happening to her. Her mom walked into her room one night and she was being pulled across the floor by her feet. No explanation, no reason why this child was skidding across the carpet by being pulled by her feet. This was a hard case. I'm still working on it, and it's been 2 years because things keep coming back. It's attracted to this little girl. I've been advising her parents on how to teach her how to deal with this. I mean, she's a very gifted child, but she's just pulling all these things in. A few months ago, I got a call that she's seeing men dressed like pirates running through the house.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so I dealt with that. And everything that I told them, like the trees, the thing being in the trees, the traveling between the two houses, this was all things that this little girl had told them verbatim was happening. And, the rest of my paranormal team was out in the garage, and, the other team had called me in, was sitting in the garage with our team, and he goes, you know what? She's dead on. It's scary how dead on she is. She got in every claim exactly right. So I did a cleansing on the house. I found out that some Indian artifacts had been dug out of the ground and brought into their home from a Indian mound that was close to their property. Again, don't do that. You're inviting what's called an elemental spirit, which is basically a Native American folklore of an elemental. They're connected to nature. They're protectors of, the Native American people. They're also called skinwalkers sometimes. And you can, make one of these really angry, and it's going to get even with you until you put the stuff back. So I did suggest that they put that back, and I'm hoping things will calm down for them. I had another case where a woman called me, again, being dragged out of the bed by her feet. This one was kind of odd because she said, I have worms crawling out of my skin. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, have you gone to the doctor? And she's like, yes. And they don't know what it is. And she sent me pictures where you can see on her thigh these white, like almost like a maggot kind of looking thing.
Okay.
But not. I mean, it was way bigger. And they're coming out of her skin. Oh. She stated that she felt that she had been abducted.
Okay.
By aliens. That was another case that I did. Finally got that one settled down. Cleansed the house. She had these things crawling on her floor.
What in the world?
Yeah. And, she would send me pictures. Here's one. It's coming out of the bathroom. And I'm like, huh. And, I couldn't really figure out what that was connected to, but she said that she felt she'd been abducted by aliens. So, that was a completely different thing for me. Still paranormal, but completely different.
Right.
But I managed to help her settle things down. And I haven't heard from her since, so I'm assuming everything's okay. And, those are some of the cases I've worked on. There's many, many others that I've done.
These are just, those are wicked. Those are wicked. I mean, they range from such totally different intensities, involving children, which I think all of us will agree that children are a lot more open and susceptible to this kind of activity, like her being drug around.
They absolutely are.
By her legs. My goodness, that'd be horrifying to watch. Not
yeah.
Especially being the child. I mean, she just doesn't imagine or doesn't understand what's going on. Oh my. We are going to skip off here to our final break of the evening, and when we come back, more with Rebecca. We're going to talk about some missing person cases, and she's going to tell us how she can be contacted as well. And she's also graciously given away half a reading. And I've got a little test for you fine folks there in chat. And the person that gets that answer correct first wins that half reading. She's going to tell us about that when we come back as well. More Fate Radio when we come back. Stay tuned.
Stations in the world. We're one of them. WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Let's talk. Marcella Zinner. Named one of the best intuitive psychics of Tampa Bay, Marcella is ready to change your life. Being a clairvoyant since childhood, Marcella enhanced her natural gifts with a master's degree from the College of Metaphysical Studies and ongoing advanced studies at the Edgar Cayce Foundation. Marcella's passion is to share her gifts with you. With intuitive counseling, past life regressions, Reiki, and empowering workshop events. What are you waiting for? Call 727-785-8780. That's 727-785-8780 to schedule your life-changing appointment with Marcella. Marcella Zinner, intuitive counselor and clairvoyant. Find your answers at marcellaz.com. In 2012, Keith Linder, after successfully obtaining a management position at a prestige healthcare company, decides the time is right for him and his girlfriend to move in together. That's putting things lightly. Weird things begin to happen within days of moving into the modern suburban home. The horrors they witnessed and desperately tried to fight off would end up putting them at the odds with members of the paranormal community and themselves. This gripping story, told from the house occupant's point of view, not only lists tales, but also includes pictures, video reenactments, commentary, and audio of the events being reported. Author Keith Linder does not ask you to believe him. He only asks you to listen. The Bothell Hell House by Keith Linder, now available on Amazon. The book, The Bothell Hell House. The author, Keith Linder. Order yours today on Amazon. In a world of many voices, there's just one that needs to be heard. Yours. Join the conversation at letstalkradio.net.
47 minutes past the hour. Fate Radio. Those of you just joining us from your Friday night out, welcome to the final segment of the program. And don't worry, we've got everything archived for you. You can find those later on about 30 minutes after this live broadcast at letstalkradio.net. That's letstalkradio.net, or just search Fate Radio on iTunes, Google Play Music, and iHeartRadio, and you'll find it there as well. Now, we are speaking with the Motor City medium, Rebecca Smuk, and we are talking about Ouija's, ghosts, some of her most horrific cases she's been on, and my goodness, what a program it has been. So definitely want to tune into the archive if you missed any portion of tonight's show. And I just posted the question in the chat room. The first person to answer that correctly is going to win a half reading, $50 value from Rebecca. That is amazing. That is amazing. And she's going to be touching on those as well. I mean, you guys have heard how accurate she is and how she uses the Ouija. A very unique reading this is going to be, and the cases she's been through. So she's not she didn't just wake up yesterday and say, I'm going to be a psychic today. That's not the case. This is something that has been extensive. She's experienced and definitely can be trustworthy. because she's giving you all kinds of tips and techniques on what not to do with the Ouija, how the Ouija was demonized by Hollywood, but yet it's not. It can be used for good if you use it correctly. So many tips that you've given everybody tonight, Rebecca, so thank you for that. My goodness.
Oh, you're welcome. I want people to be safe first and foremost.
Safe is good. Safe is good. We don't want any ping pong balls bouncing around people's houses. That's not a good thing.
No. Now we don't want to make the things trapped and mad.
Yeah, they can't get out. We have just a few minutes left, and I want to touch on missing person cases. Now, some of these, what are some that stick out in your mind, and how do you do the missing person case? Do you use a Ouija with that as well?
No, I use what's called remote viewing, or this basically, I work with local police departments. I've earned a reputation as being accurate. They're still very skeptical, but the cases that I've worked on, I've given them things that I couldn't have possibly have known. So that gives me validity. So they tend to use me as a, consult on some missing persons cases. I've handled a couple pretty well-known cases I can't really get into, but they're things that people would recognize from TV that I've worked on. I had one case where a young man disappeared. They couldn't locate him. And that was right here in Detroit. I told, the family that I saw him going into a bad area. He was doing some behaviors he probably shouldn't have been involved in. Mm-hmm. He made some of the wrong people mad. I told them where they could find his vehicle. And I told them that, and I'm sorry if this upsets anybody, but I told them where they could find his body, which was in the Detroit River. Mm. Now, this was in January. And the police are telling me there's no way. It's January. There's no way his body's under the ice. And I said, he's in the river, trust me. And they're like, okay. I got a call last spring, and they're like, you're not going to believe this. His body washed up. Because they were like, no, he's not in there. And they were looking for him everywhere else. And I said, you're not going to find him. He's in the river. And so, yeah, they called me and said, yeah, he definitely was. So that family, finally got the closure that they needed. But, yeah, I've handled a lot of missing children cases. I've handled some adult cases where people have run off and the spouse doesn't know where they are. Or, adult child that's missing that I pinpointed. I had one case where she's probably 17-year-old girl, and she'd run off with a boy she met online, and her family couldn't find her. And, they were sure she was dead. They kept telling me, no, she's dead. I said, she's not dead. She's fine. And they were convinced she was dead. And I said, you're going to find her? I said, she's in a hotel room by the water with blue benches in front of it. And I couldn't get a city. That's all I could give them. And they said that they thought they knew where that was. And they went and looked, and he called me 2 days later, and he goes, I gave up on her. I thought she was dead. And you know what? She was in the hotel with the blue benches in front of it.
Wow.
He's like, he goes, he was convinced 100% of his daughter was dead. Because he said, this isn't like her. She wouldn't call me. She would not call me. She would call me. She'd be in touch. And, he was very grateful because I kept telling him she's not dead. She's okay. And I'm glad that she was.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, yeah, you have that anxiety as a parent, and then you just, in front of the water, the blue benches in front of it, oh, my goodness. That's accurate. That's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, he called me back and he said it was exactly what you said. It had blue benches all the way in front of it. The river was on the left side, and that's where she was. She was staying with this guy in this, cheesy motel. And, he got some consequences for his actions. We'll just put it that way. But she's fine. She's back home with her family, and she's safe.
Yeah, she's fine. He's walking with a severe limp, but she's good.
Yeah.
Dad to the rescue. No, these are amazing. These are absolutely amazing. The cases that you've done, the missing person. And do you find with working with law enforcement agencies, do they give you any guff or any slack, or they kind of welcome everything in?
Tons.
Yeah.
It depends on the detective handling the case. At first they'll be like, yeah, they told me to try you. I don't believe in any of this. This is, make believe. I don't believe you can do this. And then, they'll give me pictures of the missing people, or, an article of clothing or something, and I'll start giving them information, and then they're like, oh, okay. There's no way she could know that. And then like, okay, all right, I'll give you a shot. And, we work from there, and, I don't always give people the happy ending that they want, but at least they get closure. And that's really important when someone that you love is missing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My goodness. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, learning from you tonight. The audience has loved it. The winner of the half reading was Megan from Chad. And can you kind of explain to her what she's got there?
Yeah, absolutely, Megan. What we'll do is I'll give you my contact information. You can contact me through Facebook. And what we'll do is go ahead and set up, and I'll give you a half-hour reading for free. Anything you want to talk about.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you for that. And we have just a couple minutes left in the program, and I want to turn the mic over to you. Tell folks about you, how they can contact you. If they have certain cases in your area, you do remote viewing so it can be done abroad. How do they get in touch with you? Website? The mic's yours, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Thank you. I can be reached at Rebecca S. Smuk on Facebook. I have a public figure page, which is under the Motor City Medium on Facebook. I have an Instagram under Rebecca S. Smuk, and I also have a Twitter account under the Motor City Medium. Those are all ways you can contact me. Just send me a direct message through Facebook, or I do have email at RebeccaSmuk@gmail.com. You can contact me under those ways, and I'd be happy to help you with any issue that you have, and I don't charge for that.
Perfect. And I've got that information out there for him as well. And Rebecca, my goodness, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And the hour just went by too quick. That's the problem with radio.
It did.
Time flies. Time flies, but don't worry.
It goes fast.
We are definitely going to have you back on here again, because I want to talk about more of these cases in detail with you. Some of the things that you've done, how you work with the teams in detail in future programming coming up here. Definitely going to have you back. You're an amazing individual, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on here tonight. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you, Todd. It was great speaking with you too.
Fantastic. You have a great week. Take care.
You too.
And there she was, Rebecca Smuk, folks, right there. And don't worry, here in about 30 minutes, we're going to have the show. Those of you coming in from your night out, you're going, oh, no, I missed it. No, you didn't. It's fine. Give me about 30 minutes. We're going to have that up there at letstalkradio.net or fatemagradio.com. Either one of those areas will give you the archive. You can search Fate Radio right there on iTunes, Google Play Music, or iHeartRadio. And while you're out there surfing around, be sure and hop over to fatemag.com or click on the front cover right there on the website. Subscribe. The latest issue is out. More is on the way. More Fate Radio coming up next week. And you can find us on Facebook right there. Just search Let's Talk Radio on Facebook, and you'll find the future events, or click schedule at letstalkradio.net. From all of us here at Let's Talk Radio, have an amazing weekend and an even better week ahead. Take care, folks.